And I tell people up front, counseling, I am not here to fix, issues. I'm not here to do it for you. I can give you tools to help you, and I'm here to help you along the journey. But you have to do the work. And I let all clients know up front, first session, that it's not just going to be what takes place in this hour-long session that gets you to where you want to go. And so I also tell them up front, I call myself a homework therapist. And so it's not just the busy work that you get in school, right, to say that you did something, but it's always purposeful. It's always intentional. And I explain to the clients up front that the tools that I give you, you have to do something outside of this office,
Welcome back to another episode of Mind, Your Body, and Soul. And as you know, this is the healthiest podcast you have ever heard in your entire life. And remember, Mind, Your Body, and Soul is an educational podcast that focuses on all things health related to help our listeners learn more about various health topics and information they may not have had access to. We seek to inform, empower, uplift, and mobilize our listeners to become the healthiest versions of themselves. Remember, you can catch us on our website at www.nmcpodcast.com, as well as on our parental website at www.neighborhoodmedicalcenter.org. As far as audio versions, we're also available on Anchor, Breaker, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and audio and visual, of course, right here, our home, this Neighborhood Medical Center YouTube channel. So subscribe to this podcast, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. You're going to want to hit that like button for this episode because you are going to learn a lot. Now, mental health is a topic. I feel like mental health has become a bit of a buzzword in our community. And it doesn't need to be a buzzword. It needs to be a tool that we use. It needs to be something that's destigmatized and used as a tool. But especially if you're looking at social media, it's become a buzzword, and people take different words from the RAM, like narcissism and all these other things, and they just throw them around without even knowing the real meanings of these things here. And we have a lot of people who are playing counselor, playing therapist, and that's not what we need in our community. So today, to make sure we have some correct information and we're making sure we're getting our minds right the way we're supposed to, she has an organization or business called Haven for Healing, Wellness, and Restoration, LLC. I learned about this young lady because I've known her husband for a while, and he's been telling me, hey, my wife has this nice counseling business, great counseling business, and she really helps people, and I want to hook you up. So he finally hooked me up with her, and I had to make it happen. Miss Brittany Payne Bruce, excuse me. Miss Brittany Payne Bruce, welcome to Mind, Your Body, and Soul. How you doing today?
Thank you. I am doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for being here, and thank you for it's nice to be able to finally have a conversation with you, and because your husband, he speaks highly of you, and
absolutely, thank you.
And so definitely want to make sure that we get you on a podcast so we can learn more about your business, but also I work in the realm of HIV/AIDS, but I work in healthcare, period. And one of the things that I've understood is mental health is something that's very, very, very crucial. It's a crucial component for our overall health, because if our mental health isn't together, that will affect the way we just take care of ourselves, period.
Absolutely.
So before we kind of get more into the mental health aspect, can you give us some background information about yourself? How did you get into mental health, and what led you to starting your own business?
Well, I've always been intrigued with being able to talk to people, to help people reason, to help people process through whatever kind of issues they were dealing with. And I've always been that way from a child. So the interest initially just sparked from there. In high school, I kind of thought about several different routes, but I landed on psychology because I had an AP psychology class that I thought was really interesting. I love to see how the mind works. I love to see how people think. And I like being a part of that change. So it just led me to go to school to major in psychology. And of course, you got to take it a little step further when you major in psychology.
Yeah.
And counseling was the thing that I landed on. First, I was thinking maybe I want to be a guidance counselor, but then I was like, I don't want to be limited to just, the school population. And so I actually talked with one of my professors, and I was thinking about the PhD route. And she just asked me a simple question. She said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to do counseling." And she said, "Well, get through the master's program and get your license." And that's what I did. So mental health has been something since a child that I was intrigued by. But also, I have, just a personal encounter. I have a close family member that deals with mental health issues and has several diagnoses. And being that she's so close to me, it made me wonder, like, okay, what's really going on? How can I help? How can I be a part of the solution? And so that's really what landed me here to pursue that degree, to pursue that license so that I could be a part of the change.
Right. Okay. And so, because I majored in psychology myself,
Okay.
but I was done with school, so I couldn't see myself going further. But I didn't at the time. I didn't understand the next step of well, I kind of understood it. If you want to be a psychologist, you have to go. But if you want to do counseling, then it's similar route, but it's not the same exact steps that you would take. And because I know at FAMU, I think that some of the counseling programs or something were part of the educational program.
Yep, educational leadership.
Yeah, and so that was different from the social sciences. That was with psychology. So that's one thing that I did learn.
Right.
Okay, so when you're going through your journey, you're learning about mental health. You're learning about yourself in mental health and what you want to do in mental health, and you get your master's. So after you get your master's, what's your next step? Did you go right into creating your own business, or did you learn some other things along the way before you got to your business?
Right. I did not go right into creating my own business. After I got my master's, it was about pursuing licensure. And in order to do that, you got to get some experience, right?
Okay.
And you have to find someone qualified to supervise you. So I actually started working at Florida Therapy Services as a counselor there. That was my first experience. It gave me a lot of great experience. I really appreciate it for that. And so during that time, I got experience with all kind of populations, from children to adolescents to adults. I got a lot of experience through that, and I started the supervision process. And so I worked there. I've worked in substance abuse. I've worked a little bit as a clinical supervisor in certain agencies. So I didn't really decide to start my own until maybe about 3 years ago. So I got that experience, I got that supervision that I needed, and I just decided, this is something that I want to do on my own, and also be able to offer other people the opportunity to get their license as well. So, which made me pursue a little bit further to be a qualified supervisor.
Okay, and getting your experience, is it required, or is that something that you did for yourself? Do you have to touch different aspects of counseling to get your license?
The experience is required to get your license. After you get your master's degree, you have to do at least 2 years supervised experience. And so a lot of people just go ahead and get the experience. But the thing about it is, if you want to get your license, you have to register with the Board of Health as a registered intern so that those experience hours will count. Because to get your licensure for mental health, I think it's still like 1,500 direct experience hours. You have to have a certain amount of clinical supervision hours. And so that's a requirement.
Gotcha. Oh, so they want to make sure you know your stuff before you
Absolutely.
out here calling yourself a certified counselor.
Right. And you have to take the state, well, you have to take the exam, the National Mental Health Counselor exam.
Okay. And then that led you into your business.
Right. So once I got my license, that just led me into my business. I just decided, what do I want to do?
Mhm.
I'm always thinking about what's next. I don't like to get stuck in a place. So, I always I always have believed in working for myself. And so I was just thinking, what's the next steps for me to get there? I did talk to a lot of people like, okay, how did you do this? How did you do that? I asked a lot of questions. And just to be honest, a lot of it was figuring it out.
Yeah.
I didn't major in business, of course.
Mhm.
So a lot of it was research, figuring it out, and, learning along the way, using my
Right.
resources.
Okay. So I want to put a pin in the business aspect and come
Mhm,
back to that, but I want to deal with the mental health thing. I want to get a better understanding of what mental health is and
mhm.
how some things are affected. So, um, just from baseline, like what from your experience and your certifications and definitions, what really is mental health counseling?
Mental health counseling, in its simplest form, is providing guidance to help people process through life. Mental health deals with just making sure that your mind or your psychological aspect is well.
Hmm.
And so, in simplest forms, it's just taking care of your mind. And like you said earlier, that affects all areas of life.
Right.
But mental health counseling focuses on helping you to get to a place where your mind is well.
Okay. So what would be different or similar or concentrate? What would be the difference between counseling and therapy?
Counseling and therapy are interchangeable words.
Okay.
Yes, counseling and therapy, because you both aspects, the words are used interchangeably, but you use different techniques, you use different theories, you use different strategies to work with whatever kind of mental health diagnoses that you have. So those words are interchangeable.
Gotcha. So basically you are our mental personal trainer.
That's a good way to put it. Absolutely.
Okay, because when you said that's all I was thinking about, like so personal training, but for the
Yes,
mind.
yes, that's a
Okay,
good analogy.
all right. So watch, of course, we social media. We a
Hmm.
lot of us are on social media. Like YouTube is my normal TV. I don't really like the other TV, but I like YouTube. But you come across a lot of different creators with a lot of different content,
Hmm.
and I often hear, especially Black men and women, talking about being in counseling, being in therapy, um, and some have been in for short time, some have been in for long time. So, from your perspective, what do you, how do you approach a counseling session? How do you approach a person who you're counseling to, from your end, help to make sure that they can benefit as much as possible from the counseling?
I think that starts really simple. Like, my goal is to find out why you're here and what you want to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my approach is to try to make it as normal as possible. I'm not a very uptight person, because you're not going to be very therapeutic if people don't feel relaxed and comfortable enough to share. And so I always find out, what brings you here? What do you want to accomplish? And through that, together, because counseling is a working relationship, we develop some goals and some strategies of how to get you where you want to be. So I always approach it with, tell me why you're here, and tell me what can I do to help you to get to where you want to go. So I'm um, like that conductor. We're on the train, right? We have a destination to get to. You bring me whatever it is that you feel like is an issue for you,
Mm-hmm.
and you tell me where you want to get to, and I kind of help you map out that pathway to get there and help you along the way.
Gotcha. But I guess what I'm getting at is the person still has to put in the work on their end
Absolutely,
to help
absolutely.
themselves.
And I tell people up front, counseling, I am not here to fix, issues. I'm not here to do it for you. I can give you tools to help you, and I'm here to help you along the journey. But you have to do the work. And I let all clients know up front, first session, that it's not just going to be what takes place in this hour-long session that gets you to where you want to go. And
Gotcha.
so I also tell them up front, I call myself a homework therapist. And so it's not just the busy work that you get in school, right, to say
Right.
that you did something, but
Right.
it's always purposeful, it's always intentional. And I explain to the clients up front that the tools that I give you, you have to do something outside of this office. Once you leave here, that's when the real work begins, because it's easy, going through it with me or role playing with me.
Right.
But when you leave this office, when you walk out that door, that's when it starts. And so I always tell people, you're going to have to put in the work. And so if you come back to me and say, Brittany, I didn't do my homework, it's kind of like, okay, so where are we really trying to go? Let me, encourage you by reminding you of our goals. These are things that you said that you wanted to accomplish, really being supportive in the journey, but there's still that piece of accountability.
Gotcha. And I'm glad you said that like that, because it's giving a realistic view of what counseling is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want people to think that they could just go to counseling and the counselor does all the work. And like you said, I'm glad you said you don't fix people. You're helping people help themselves.
Absolutely.
Giving you the tools. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. And so also you do individual counseling, couples, families, and groups.
Absolutely.
So let me find the best way to say this, because I know it can be interesting doing group and couples counseling.
Mm-hmm.
So I know from an individual standpoint, you working with that person one-on-one, you're giving them the tools that they need. And it could be difficult with one person. So
Yes.
what are some of the challenges as a counselor that you would face with, like, before we get to the group, like a couple who's going through issues? Because the individual and the group issues. So what are some of the overall issues you do deal with, and how do you handle those issues?
Okay, so couples come in with a variety of issues. We know that it can range from communication to, we don't have the quality time. And so one of the issues that a counselor may face is, let's come to a common ground about what our goals are. What are we trying to accomplish as a couple? And so we know that individuals, you have individual minds. So one person may be thinking, I want to achieve this. Another person may be thinking, I want to achieve this. And not that their individual goals can't be achieved, but trying to come like, okay, we need to get on a central path of what do we want to accomplish as a couple. So that's one of the challenges. And to meet that challenge, during the first session, we let it all out. Okay, now that we've gotten this out, how do we, identify these goals? And so I'm very directive when it comes to that, as we have to identify some goals. I understand that there may be a lot going on, but let's narrow the focus a little bit. One of the other issues is the issue of balance. So you have two people and you have an hour, right? Typically, it could go longer, just depending. So you have two people with bringing 5 things from this person, 5 things from that person, and you have an hour. So one of the challenges that may be encountered is balance.
Right.
My focus of a session is not to let one person overtalk the other person, just so that each person feels equally heard.
Mm-hmm.
And so that may be a challenge. And the other challenge may be keeping the setting really therapeutic. Emotions get high. People start talking about things that they are passionate about. And so some of it is some de-escalation. A lot of it is translating. Okay, this is what this person is saying. And so those are some of the challenges that are faced with couples therapy. But I love it, because at the end, when you see it come together, or when you see it begin to come together, it all makes sense. They see the progress, you see the progress, so it encourages them to continue.
Right. Yeah, I'm guessing that it's a challenge, but like you say, when you can see them get over the hump, it has to feel good as a counselor that actually you can, because that means that they're actually using the techniques and things.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I find that the couples or the couple's homework is the most interesting because it
Yeah.
takes two people to complete it.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so, at some point there has to be some kind of coming together. And if it doesn't happen, what it does is it presents an opportunity in the next session. Okay, let's work through it together while you have a third party, and while you have someone who is trained to help you to navigate. So that next time you have the homework, because sometimes we do have a lot of repeat assignments,
Right.
so that the next time you're able to be successful at it.
Gotcha. Gotcha. But you're still putting it back on them to do it
Mm-hmm.
themselves. It's the
Still have to
whole
do it themselves.
right. Right. Now that's great. So what's the overall importance of when you, especially like it, whether it's a couple, family, or group, what's the importance of putting everything on the table? Why is that usually one of the first steps that has to happen for growth to happen? What's the importance of all the issues, putting them on the table?
Well, the main importance is you have to know where you're going,
Hmm.
right? And if there are things covered up or if things are not shared, you don't get a sense of what the true issue is. So, just like, in the medical field, I could go to the doctor and say my thumb hurts. There could be a plethora of reasons why my thumb hurts, but if I didn't tell you that the other day I slammed my thumb in the door, that's a
Right.
really important piece to help you to come up with a diagnosis
Okay.
so that we have a treatment plan. And so it's important that the issues are laid out on the table so that the counselor is not just shooting in the dark trying to find out, okay, I see that you guys are arguing a lot. If I don't know, some of the factors, then that puts me at a disadvantage to truly help. So it helps for diagnosis purposes. Let me see what the problem is so that we can have an accurate treatment plan to address the issues.
Gotcha. But like you say, you get to come up with a treatment plan. So you're putting
Mm-hmm.
everything on the table so you can see what's going on and get basically the why of the situation, and
Yes,
being able
yes.
to create a plan from the why.
Right. And it's not that everything is going to come out in the first session. I've been counseling long enough to know that, people share the more they're comfortable. So
Right.
the first session, I may get maybe just a tenth of what's going on. But as that rapport is being built, more things come out and we're able to say, okay, so this is what it is. That is what it is. So, yes.
Gotcha. And I asked that question because once again, social media and TV, it especially in this area, in this era, it has dominated our lives as one of the main influences. And we
Mm-hmm.
literally have a whole generation who were raised knowing nothing but social media. And so,
Mm-hmm.
we see the clips on social media, we're watching these TV shows, and people are always putting stuff on the table, but there's no resolution. So that's why I
Mm-hmm.
asked that, because if I can watch one of these shows and they have these reunion shows and all of these here, and especially if these are my biggest influences, things are
Mm-hmm.
being put on the table, but it only leads to more argument, only leads to more fighting. So
Mm-hmm.
what has to happen so when things are put on the table, it doesn't lead to fighting? It can actually, how do you direct it from the fighting to the resolution?
I think that goes back to what I talked about with the treatment plan, right? The difference, and I'm kind of going to throw a little bit in there too. You do have a lot going on social media, a lot of people throwing out, and you said in your intro that there are a lot of counselors, right?
Yeah.
And so the difference is that those who have gone to school for it, those who are licensed for it, are trained specifically to do things a certain way. So it's not just we're having a conversation and, it's not just, someone just coming together and say, hey, let's talk about your issues. We are specifically trained to identify goals. So that is how we do it. Their goals. Like,
Gotcha.
so if we say that we want to improve communication, that's a great general goal. But you're taught that goals have to be specific, they have to be
Yes.
measurable,
Yes.
attainable, realistic, and time sensitive. And so that treatment plan really guides us to how we do it, because we're going to come up with some objectives. Okay, if you want to improve communication, let's talk about what that looks like. If you talk one time a week, okay, maybe we want to improve that or increase that to 4 times a week. And so we're going to do that by maybe we have these different exercises or these different assignments that I give you to increase the communication. Maybe we have some landing points of what communication is supposed to look like. And so it's really those goals that help you to come to those resolutions. And so it's not about what I, as the counselor, said. These are goals that, again, the clients have identified. And so that is their landing point.
Gotcha. That's great. That's great. Like I say, because it is, I'm happy that you're answering the way you're answering, because it's giving full perspective. One of the things we try to fight against the narratives, the negative narratives. Like I was just having a conversation with some coworkers this morning. If we really take a time to look at a lot of the messages and a lot of narratives that we're giving are negative. I can remember I was a part of a organization on FAMU campus a while ago, and we did a violence fast. And during that violence fast, we had to cut out 75% of the stuff that we intake in our being on a regular basis. And there's just so much negativity. Now, as a counselor, how do you all go about finding your counseling or finding people to help you? Or because a lot of people are dumping things off on you. That's literally your job. People are dumping their issues off on you. So how do you find solace? How do you find counseling for yourself as a counselor so you can be refreshed when you come back for your clients?
Absolutely. So I have a couple answers for that. The first answer is the counselor needs a counselor. So find you a therapist. You can't really expect, to be truly effective if you have all these things that you are hearing, receiving, sometimes internalizing, and you have no way to discard of that, right? So a counselor, I think, is a good idea. Every counselor should have a counselor, and they teach you that in school as well. Like, you should have somebody, or you should at least try therapy once, because you know the experience from experience, right? And so the second thing is the things that we teach our clients about having outlets, having resources. So for me, it's music. I love music. For me, it's ministry, it's prayer, it's whatever you need that serves as a place to either refill you spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and just something that helps you release. Journaling helps. There are different techniques that you teach your clients that you will find yourself using.
So you got to practice what you preach, basically.
Absolutely.
Good. Now that's awesome for people to hear you say that. Because social media is crazy, and we had in the months in the past, we had a string of therapists and things that we were seeing kind of going crazy on social media. Like, where's that therapist and where are their counselors? But but thinking about that, that's one of the reasons. And now after talking to your husband, one of the reasons why I want to have you on here, so we can get a positive light of what counseling is, a positive light of what therapy is, especially within our community, because we need it.
Yes,
really, and we need to get over the stigma of counseling and mental health.
Absolutely. And mental health is not something that is exclusive to people who have diagnoses. Everybody that is breathing, needs to be concerned about their mental health. It's not that you're crazy. It's not that you are incompetent, in any way. It's just an assist, to help you to process through, to help you to manage through, because sometimes you do need that outside professional third party, that's not just your friend to say, oh girl, oh man, it's going to be okay. You do need that to help you, but it's just an assist. And, I think if we start looking at it like that, like it's an assist, we use medications to help us assist in our physical well-being. And so counseling is just one of those things that helps mentally assist you. And so we have to start changing that. And I think a lot of it in our community therapy does come from a lack of trust. And so I think when you see people that look like you, that are culturally competent, it does help with the trust.
Yes. Yeah.
And I do see where the stigma is beginning to break. I do see where I'm seeing more of us come into, therapy and really receive the help that we need, and being transparent with what is going on.
Right. Because like you're saying, it's an assist. It will be the equivalent to your annual checkups from the doctors. Or when you go see the dentist, your 6-month dental visit, you need to have
Yep.
make sure you add mental health to that list, just
Mm-hmm.
to make sure you're good.
Yeah, yeah. And it's not that therapy has to last forever.
Right.
A lot of strategies that we use are, you know, time sensitive. Like, you don't have to be in therapy if you choose to. There's nothing wrong with that either, but you don't have to be there for 3, 5 years, 10 years. That's a stigma as well. And so just like you are able to get the tools that you need to help with your health, you're able to get the tools that you need to help with your mental health to get you to a place where you are self-sufficient. And then if you want to do check-ins, no problem. But therapy is very, very directed. It's a very directed approach.
Okay.
And so you use it like some people use it like, you take certain supplements. Those are things that you consistently do to make sure that you are consistently well. And
Yeah.
so I teach people that while you're in therapy, consistency is key. Don't have a plethora of goals and then want to come to therapy once every 6 months. No,
Yeah.
let's work to resolve the issue, and then we can talk about reducing frequency.
Gotcha. Yes, that's very important because the repetitions that help.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Absolutely.
I know a question people want me to ask is of the affordability.
Uh-huh.
So, well, let me ask this: what insurances do you take or don't you take?
Okay. I accept Capital Health Plan. I accept Cigna. I accept United Healthcare and Florida Blue.
Okay.
And so right now, those are the only insurance panels I take. And I'll take self-pay clients as well.
Okay. Now, for those who may not understand why I asked that question, can you explain to people why having health insurance can help you in receiving counseling or therapy?
Okay, absolutely. Having health insurance helps you to offset the cost. So every therapist has a fee, right? And so what insurance does is it says, I'll pay this portion of the fee and you pay this portion, which is usually your copay. And so whereas you may be paying the full thing by yourself without insurance, insurance says I'll offset that fee. And so that's why that's important. It's important for access, and access sometimes to a better quality of care.
Yes. 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 So yes, health insurance is very, very, very important. Now, do you because the health insurance help those who may not have the full payment. Um, has there ever been a situation where it was a person who wanted your help, but they didn't have not the finances or the necessary insurances? And if so, were you able to help them or refer them to somebody else?
Absolutely. There are instances, take for example, Medicaid. I don't accept Medicaid, and I'll explain that in a minute. But, you know, since I don't service Medicaid, yes, I am able to provide resources of either community based agencies or certain therapists that I know, that I know their work, that I'm able to refer them to do that. There may be some clients without health insurance, without Medicaid of any type, and they're self-pay, but they can't afford the rate. So what I'll do is I'll try to find them resources, or I have for sure done discounted rates because I believe in helping. I
Yes.
didn't get into this, for the money. I believe in helping, and so I'm able to, let's talk about fees. Let's have a conversation about it. So I don't just say, no, you can't afford my fee, or I don't know anybody that can help you. Let's have a conversation and let's see what can be done.
Gotcha. So if neighborhood matter, if we're not in your network, we need to make sure we're in your network. So
Please do.
because we definitely have patients that could use your services, and
Mm-hmm.
we do have patients who do have the insurances that you accept. So
Okay.
we need to talk more after this because I need to get you in contact with some of these case managers around here
Okay.
so they can
Absolutely.
connect with you. Yeah,
Absolutely.
because that affordability or that just access period, that access to mental health care. And I think, and I'll just say this from my experience. Um, I'm from here in Tallahassee, and so my
Mm-hmm.
experience just with health period has been an evolution.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy because the first doctors I went to were black doctors, Dr. Isaias Lee and them. And so,
Yeah.
but getting older, um, finances and things life happened in finances. So healthcare, access to healthcare wasn't the same. And it wasn't until I became an adult. But by the time I became an adult, that's when it's okay now to go to therapy. But that
Yes.
was the thing. When I was growing up, especially us black people, we don't go to therapy. And you only and the way it was marketed to us is you literally have to be deemed almost insane to have
Mm-hmm.
health counseling. So that's what I feel like the stigma of crazy went to people who were going to therapy.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. And just to be honest, not many people, I'm glad you said when you were younger, you didn't really hear about it, but as an adult, you're like, oh, okay, it's okay to go.
right.
I do see children. A lot of people don't like to work with children, and that's their choice, but I do see a lot of children, and I think it's great that parents are recognizing that this does not mean that my child is crazy.
Hmm.
They just need that assist. And
Right.
so it has really been an evolution in mental health.
So, because earlier you mentioned that you were thinking about guidance counseling first.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you're doing now, it you still do get to talk to or to work with some of the kids, but I guess it's an advanced version. It's a more thorough version because you're not just limited to children, but you can actually give a service to the child and the parents and everybody in the home and be able to help them. That hence family counseling.
Absolutely. And really what made me switch was that, you know, not only did I not want to be limited to the school setting, I just didn't want to get into all of the scholastic intricacies, so to speak, with the testing and making sure that you have the classes that you need. Like
Mhm.
that's okay in its own route, in its own right. But for what I wanted to do, to be able to help work through emotional, work through behavioral issues, it was more on the mental health side. And so I just didn't want to get stuck in that vein of, okay, this is about, all right, what courses you need to graduate. Let's focus on this testing and all of that. And like I said, not that it's bad, it just wasn't what I wanted to do. So I still get to work with children, but you're right. I get to work with them and the parents. I get to work on, parent-child interaction. I get to do more of those things.
Right, right. And but that's what and going back to the business, that's what makes your business something that is impactful, I would say. That's
Hmm.
what I'm looking for. It's what make your business impactful because we believe in wraparound services. We believe in services that help reinforce the things that we're trying to improve on ourselves. So whether it's the child or the parent, they can if they're going back into a supportive environment,
Hmm.
that's going to really help. But also, if you're able to work with everybody in that environment and they're supporting each other, you're definitely going to get some success.
Absolutely, absolutely. You cannot effectively work with a child excluding the parent. Whomever the parent is, it may not be the mom or dad, whomever the guardian is, because you're right. They have to leave your office at some point and
Mhm.
they have to be reintegrated into whatever environment. And so that's the part that I like about counseling with children. Now, one of the misconceptions about counseling with children is that, oh, you have to tell the parent everything. That's not true. They're
Right,
entitled to confidentiality as
right,
well. However, I do speak with parents about these are the strategies that we're working on that I need need you to reinforce at home. You know, if I'm able to get in, I've sat in on Zoom conferences, like with when teachers get together and meet, just to say, I need to know what's going on with them at school. Like, what strategies are you using? Do they
Right.
have time to gather and compose themselves? So I love that about working with children because it doesn't just stop there. I get to work with their network.
Good. Not, but like that specific word, network.
Hmm.
I love that you use that because you see, look, your mindset is right because it's all about making things better and helping the people. Because
Hmm.
just the words you use, that network, understanding how a network can really impact a person.
Absolutely. It can make a break. We can have 50 million strategies in therapy, but if they go home to school, to the community center, or to wherever and don't have that reinforcement, every tool that we have talked about goes out of the window.
Okay, it broke up a bit, but StreamYard did something different, so
It's
it'll still
okay.
come.
I
And
can
I
repeat.
yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying we can do 50 million strategies in therapy, but if they leave here and they go home or to school or to any kind of community activity and it's not reinforced, every strategy that we've learned kind of goes out of the window.
So speaking of that, have you let's say a specific child or teenager were in counseling with you or anything that you've experienced, um, has members from the school or other places of the environment, have they ever been involved in the therapy or within the network of the child to help them outside of the parents?
Yes, they've been involved in the network. As I mentioned earlier, like I've sat in on conferences where the parent is meeting with all the teachers and they're sitting in the room, and I have time between sessions to kind of pop on video. It gives me a chance to speak, to say, like, hey, these are strategies that will be helpful to them because this is what we've been working on in therapy. And it gives them a chance to say, this is what I'm seeing in the classroom, or this is what I'm seeing happening with the child. So it gives us a chance to say, well, can you allow them, if they're having a behavioral issue, if they're having a hard time, can you allow them to do this, because that's a strategy that we're working on. So it's that reinforcement. So yes, I have had instances where I can, I may not be able to go to the school, but we live in a world of technology, so I'm able to virtually pop in and just show that help is not just coming from just the home. Help is not just coming from just the school, that there is another resources to work in conjunction.
Right, right. Haven for Healing, Wellness, and Restoration LLC. If you didn't know, now you know. This is how you start your week off. This is definitely
Yeah,
how you start your week off. We we definitely have to do something like this again. We have to work more in the
absolutely.
future. I have to put you on my email list because when we have different events within our community, you can definitely come out, set up a table, and tell more people about your organization. But
Okay.
but this has been a great interview. I love the answers that you gave. Real world stuff, like realistic stuff,
Absolutely.
and I can tell that the approach you take is from a realistic stance because you want real results from your patients. Right.
Absolutely.
I definitely appreciate that. Um, Somebody see this interview. How can people find you? What's the best ways to get in contact with you?
The best way to get in contact with me is my phone number. It is area code 803-800-4011. I try to be very reachable. So if you call and I don't answer, it's probably because I'm in a session. Just text me. You can reach me at email. The email address is hhwrllc@yahoo.com. And so those are the main two ways to get in touch with me about any kind of services that you may need. If I can't help you, I'll help you to find somebody who can.
Right. And for all my viewers, that as you already know, the information is in the bio, or it's in the description rather, but I just like them to say it. So,
Yeah.
but that information is in the description. Look, Tallahassee.
Yes.
We go out of our way to make sure that we provide you with an abundance of resources. This woman is a resource. Let's support her. Let's use her. Let's take advantage of the resources that we have available. We know mental health is something that we are working to destigmatize, and she's a leader in the fight against the destigmatization of mental health illnesses. But she's doing the work. She's literally doing the work on a regular basis. So Brittany Payne Bruce, I can't say enough. This was great. This was worth the time and thing. It was worth it. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you having me, and I appreciate just your show getting it out there because it needs to be.
Yes. And like I say, I wanna be able to use some of our resources and things that we have. So any kind of events and things that we have coming up. Matter of fact, are you familiar with the Second Harvest has empowerment events? Are you familiar with those?
I'm not familiar with those. I've heard of Second Harvest, but I had no idea they had empowerment events.
So you're going to get an email from me before the day is over with, and I'm going to send you the guy who organized them. Basically, it's a resource fair. It's just a resource fair surrounding passing out food. So all type of different organizations be able to come out, set up their table. But we're in environments that need the services.
Okay.
And any events or things that we have, like I said, you're more than welcome to come set up.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
No problem. So, hey, my viewers, my listeners, once again, this is how we do. Remember, this is Mind Your Body and Soul, which is an educational podcast that focuses on all things health related to help our listeners learn more about various health topics and information they may not have access to. We seek to inform, empower, uplift, mobilize our listeners to become the healthiest versions of themselves. www.nmcpodcast.com or www.neighborhoodmedicalcenter.org. Remember, also we're on Anchor, Breaker, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and of course, right here on YouTube. Subscribe. See y'all next time. Peace out.